we are going to work on some of the elements that we need for our website. So you have your product, you have its name. Now, one of the things we should just review is how by creating a good package, a good brand story, a good assets will sort of come out from those things. So today we are going to work a little bit in class on how to create some of those assets and sort of get us moving. So we'll just look at a few examples, a couple more examples of some pretty good websites that have created an overall sort of look and feel, some interesting sort of hand sign painted elements. You can sort of see there's a little bit of parallax scrolling, so you can sort of see creating a package like your will give you the elements you need. So we see the hand rendered type on there, and then we see that as a main element of their actual website itself, and then a little bit of the brand, tiny grain, big flavor. So one of the things that we have to talk about a little bit is your brand story and your headlines, which for the most part were pretty on the main website that we just finished, but that's also because it was kind of a long form article. But you can see how big a difference it makes having a brand story, having visual elements to work with. So there's, that when you look at this website, there's nothing really boring about this website. Look at the language, tiny grain, big flavor. Afro Funk is our power combo of ginger and dawa dawa, a fermented seed that is beloved in West African cooking. It's a unami bomb with a kick. So really look at some of the language in there. It's fun, it's approachable, and everything that they've done in here really goes, it really builds off of this packaging, right? I mean, the packaging is not amazing, but I don't expect you necessarily to have amazing packaging either. However, it really shows what you can do just using those brand elements. So when you're thinking about wireframing and what has to go on your site, this is actually a pretty good example of a site that sort of talks about the brand story. So Seattle Cider Company, it's not your standard cider. So as you scroll down, you kind of get the let's see here, sort of running really slow. Let's try this again. So we land in, you can click on the different beers. So not going very far without an ordering page, but you can also go to About Us, then going through the process, which is really nice. So kind of a visual storytelling of how the cider gets made, which is really cool. It's kind of fun as we scroll through there, and our mission, our vision, our values. So lots of little interesting tidbits to the site itself, and as you can see, the each sort of you can have a look at the product right below the fold in this case, so that works pretty well. But knowing what your brand story is, so having your name and then your sort of tagline or headline, which is not your standard cider, really helps. And as we go through here, they do that pretty well. So this is Orangina. Kind of uses just a really simple grid pattern to show us the not just the flavors of the drink, but a little bit of the flavor of the brand as well. And then a headline, shake the pulp, and you'll see it has a little bit of you can sort of do a little bit of animation. And then if we go back, there's sort of the brand story, the heritage of Orangina. So you can sort of go through here and just kind of using the, using the brand elements again, and a really kind of fun, a fun sort of travel through of sort of almost like fake sort of vintage posters. These are all sort of based on actual posters that they've recreated. And then, having a little bit of video in there. So having a little bit of fun with the video, and all of it in a really fun sort of really nice way to bring the brand to life as you scroll down. So lots of illustrative elements, really fun brand story, and then there's your product page. So this is probably as close as an example as you could think of to what I'm asking for. So there is great sort of introduction. You can click on the product. It has a really tight sort of visual design system, has a really good sort of brand story as a second page, which is a really nice feature. And then it also has a products page where you can click and look at the details. So this is probably as close to what I'm asking from you guys as there is, just as in terms of the deliverables and having a little bit of video and or animation. So today we're going to work on an in-class exercise of creating some packaging using pattern. And the reason we're going to do that is because you need to come up with brand elements that are original, and using pattern is a great way to do that, because when you think about pattern, the nice thing about it is not only can it sort of help your package itself, but look at the way you can then use some of those elements as brand elements for things like banners, your color system, and those types of things. So you will see pattern a lot, and we went through this a little bit last year on one of our final packaging, on the final packaging project. But the great thing is it gives you some assets to work with, some visuals, sets your sort of it sets your visual language, it sets your design language. So that's a little bit of what we're going to work on today, and hopefully you will be able to use some of the elements that we look at to create your package or packages. Bring those elements onto the website, and it can be a good start. So we are going to create a Doisy and Dam chocolate bar, and we are going to create a pattern that we can use on the chocolate bar, but as well as a background element. And then we're going to take that through into dimensions and work on one. So the first thing we do, if we look at Doisy and Dam, they use a lot of geometric pattern. It's kind of fun. It's kind of a little bit funky. So we can pretty much look at that and go, okay, well, we're going to do our own version of that. So I'm just going to start by actually just playing a little bit. So creating a series of vertical lines, and then thinking about different elements that could be patterns on there. So a lot of times patterns will have sort of counter patterns within them. So if we look at Doisy and Dam, you can see this one on the very far right here definitely has some sort of, it has some vertical line, but then it has this series of sort of cube type shapes that break it up. The one on the very far left has a series of triangles and then pattern within different triangles. And so one of the things about patterns themselves is having a counter pattern to a singular pattern can often work. So if I just start to experiment a little bit and then go, okay, well, I'm going to have sort of a, maybe I'll just try doing a cube, and then I'm going to do a series of circles. So I'm just going to mask these off. So the idea behind here is you are going to do your own version, and it can really be an exploration of pattern any way you like. So I am simply playing around a little bit, just seeing if I can get something sort of started and somewhat make it symmetrical, but I can see that it may not be the case. And then I'm going to probably use sort of 3 colors on here. And you can use as many colors as you like. So I have some pretty garish looking colors going on. We'll get this kind of a mustardy color. So a pattern can be as simple as that. So I'm just going to try and sort of find some elements where it'll actually line up with a few things. So if I sort of bring it to there, I could do that, and then maybe that happens every second. It wasn't very mathematical, I'll tell you that. So it kind of looks like some weird American flag right now, but that's okay. I'm not so worried, about necessarily the end result as I am sort of just getting one down so we can sort of test it out a little bit. So that's pretty much the one I'm going to go for. You know, that didn't take very long, but I also don't want to have really long videos. So there is my pattern. I'm going to sort of use, it doesn't have to be exactly the same size as Doisy and Dam, and in fact I may not use this sort of same color break that they've used. So I'm just going to select this all. And excuse me while I'm concentrating. Very tense trying to do this. Okay, so I'm a little bit short on elements, but I can group this, and then don't think that'll work. Let me see. I need to have, so what you need to have is one more. Let me just see. That doesn't really work as a pattern. I'm going to put you on hold for 1 sec. Okay, so a little bit further, kind of got my pattern down pat. Whether I like it or not, it doesn't matter. I had to do it in 15 minutes, so that's my excuse. That's never come up with excuses like that. That's terrible. You deal with what you have to, and it's not that bad of a pattern. Just concentrate. So I'm going to sort of release you guys to do your own design. So you got to use the type, and I'm just going to take this through. I'm just going to group that, send it to the back. I'm just going to take you through how this will work. So there's a couple different elements that you have to have for this. So one of them, I'm missing some dots, there we go. So one of them obviously is creating a pattern, right? And whether it's geometric or whether it's an illustrative pattern, well, for this case it is going to be start with a geometric pattern. But for your own project, if you are thinking about what kind of packaging you're going to have, working with pattern we've looked at before and we'll look at again. It is a staple of design, and with this project specifically, you have to come up with a lot of different elements that are going to sort of set up your website. So we looked at an example of a pretty good one that uses illustration and a brand story, and that's a really good one to follow. But then you have to actually come up with the stuff, right? And sorry, I should actually be narrating as I'm talking. So I think with my version that I'm going to do, I'm going to go a little bit different than what they did. So let's just sort of so I'm just going to put this on a little bit of gray just so we can sort of see what we're dealing with. So I'm going to do kind of a Swiss type chocolate bar, not a Swiss chocolate type, like Swiss topography type. So I'm going to sort of give myself sort of areas on the actual bar where I will have type. So let's just see. I'm going to do a second sort of version of this. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to have a background, and then I'm going to have the pattern where I can crop it a little bit differently. And then I'll bring those two together. I don't really love those colors, so may end up changing them before I go too much further. But for now, I'm going to sort of deal with quickly sort of laying out a nice Swiss, I guess a Swiss chocolate bar. Okay, so I'm going to leave myself some white space, as you would if you were a designer, and whether you put a label on yours, that's completely up to you. So I'm going to just wonder if I have, well, I may actually stay with the typeface I'm using. So this is All Right Sans. It's actually a pretty nice typeface window. Let's bring up my type. This is what happens when you have two monitors and a bunch of things open. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to treat this in black. I think we should change that weight so it's a little bit thinner, just so that that stands out a little bit. Just going to open that up. And then I'm going to open this up. I'll just eyeball it for now. They're pretty close. I do not love that. Just going to close that down a little bit. So I may actually line it up so the Y overhangs a little bit. So otherwise I'm going to have to track it out, but that's neither here nor there. I could put more space in here, but this, I don't want this to become a type exercise. So I'm going to have some fairly tight spacing on here. Okay, so I'm off to a flying start. It started taking me 6 minutes to do this, but that's okay. So if I'm going to do a Swiss style poster, maybe I'm going to change some of my colors, I think. Maybe a nice mocha color. I think. Sound like an idiot. Don't want that either. I'm going to do burnt. More of an earth color. Don't want that either. Oh, maybe I'm going to make those the same color. Hang on. I'm going to try and... Yeah, there we go. Okay, now we're starting to cook here. Now I'm going to give these a little bit of a pop. Well, we'll leave it like that for now. See, I got some issues here too. Close that down a little bit. So things aren't exactly hunky-dory with my pattern. I can see there's an extra bar in there, but that's okay. So if I'm doing a Swiss style chocolate bar, then I may decide that I'm going to use a series of short rules. And with this one, I'm going to actually make it a little bit fat. Okay, so I've taken another 5 minutes and I've sort of set this out. So I'm trying to keep it a little bit along this Swiss type chocolate, not Swiss type chocolate, being the chocolate is Swiss, but the type on the chocolate packaging is Swiss. So this is what you're going to do, and you can break up the type however you want. It does not have to be Swiss style. It could be graffiti, it could be modern, it could be modern vintage, it can be hand rendered. However you want to put the type on there, you will match the same type. Now the only difference is once you sort of get it to this point, what you're going to do is you are going to give it a little bit of personality. So for this in-class exercise, you are actually going to give it a little bit of a tagline. So that's what I sort of have up here. And the tagline, call to action, or the sort of brand personality can be as it can be as bold as you like, but it has to go beyond sort of the boring sort of headlines that we were sort of using for our first website. Meaning that with this, we want to have some personality, because we're going to need this personality for the rest of our website. So I'm just going to put something in for now. So Doisy and Dam, organic white chocolate, 30%. Then let's just think about what my little headline could be. Boring packaging, but really fun chocolate. So let's just pop that. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it like that for now. And that's what I'm going to deal with. So all I'm saying is, like, maybe my chocolate packaging isn't as fun as it could be, but that's because our sort of brand philosophy is we spend more time making the chocolate taste good than the packaging look good. And I think that's, let me just see where this is going to sit. Okay. Then I might add one more sort of little element to it to give it a bit of a Swiss feel. Okay, so sorry, I just had to think about what I was going to do. So I'm going to add one more sort of Swiss kind of element to that, just to give it a bit more flavor. Just get rid of that. So I'm going to add just a little bit of type in here that has a little bit more of a Swiss feel to it. So sometimes chocolate, or sometimes packaging in general, to make it really stand out, sometimes having like nice little type elements or secondary elements can really help it. And that's sort of what I'm going to do here, and I'm going to try and get this done before this 15-minute clock runs out. Okay, so I have my package pretty much done. Doisy and Dam, organic white chocolate, 30%, boring packaging, really fun chocolate. And then a little section down here, 100 G's in precisely 12 pieces per pack. So just a little bit of kind of bit of a Swiss kind of feel to the bottom part. So using some rules, an arrow, some little circle. So that's what I have for the packaging, and now we're going to sort of build it out a little bit. Okay, so we are going to just go through rendering this in dimensions. So here we go. I'm going to start with new document. I'm not going to save this one, so we're going to start over. The first thing you want to do is so say you saved your PNGs from Illustrator, artboards, They're about 3 or 4 times the size that they need to be, and they're probably 400 or 500 dpi. So in dimensions, before you get started, you want to change your sizes here. So we're looking at 14 inches by 10 inches. Fine, let's go with that. But this resolution has to be at about 400 dpi for the text to show up properly. So we've done that. We're actually just gonna do a really flat render for this one. So I'm gonna go over to the sort of rotate tools here. And so I've just clicked on that, and you can see as I pull this around, I'm basically rotating it so we're almost looking at like a flat surface, and that's actually what we want with this one. So what will happen is when I go up into my starter assets, I'm going to look for kind of a box to work with, and this can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to grab this box, I'm going to plop it right into the middle of my document. I'm just going to now, as soon as you start scaling these things, you have to remember that they will scale your artwork as well. So then you have to unscale it. So here I'm scaling it up, making it pretty good size. But to make it more like that, to make it more like the kind of chocolate bar that I was working with, is relatively like this. Now I'm going to plop it in there. So then I can start bringing in my artwork. So first thing I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to make the color, and I'll just bring this in a bit. I'm going to make the color of my package the background. I'm going to make it white. So I just pop it up there. The next thing I do is first I'm going to click on the background. So there is the background, and I'm going to bring in a plane. So you see over here, grab this plane and I plop it on there. What that is going to do is we're going to attach our background element to that. So I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to scale it up. There we go. So I've scaled it up. Now if I do that, and I bring this over, I'm going to turn it into a regular model. So I do that. Then I'm going to place a graphic on that model. I'm going to grab my background. I'm going to place it on there. Oh, I see what's happened here. So I'm just going to scale that up, bring it over a bit, just scale that down a little bit. Okay, so I've just scaled that up, and I'm going to go view 100% so I know what I'm dealing with. I'm just going to center my package a little bit. So I've really distorted the package to put the graphics on it. And what that basically means is when you bring in your artwork, you're going to have to distort it back. So we'll just distort that, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. So the background, we have an image. Actually, no, we don't want an image. So we want to change this image. there is our plane. So if we go under lighting, we're just going to give this a little bit of a 3-point lighting. Okay, so I am going to just make this 100% so you can sort of see what I'm doing. I'm going to click on here, bring in my PNGs. So you'll see that it's going to distort it when it brings it in because I've distorted the box, and it keeps the properties the same. So in a very rudimentary way, you sort of have to rework it, and this graphic is too small for this package, but I will put it on here anyways. You want it to come in so that it's relatively 100% size. You don't have to scale it up. So you can sort of see I really have to distort it back this way to get it, because we know that those circles in there are actual circles. So we'll do that. Click on here again, grab that type, and we'll have to do the same thing. So here you'll see how distorted it actually gets. You see there that it's really distorted. So I'm going to bring it back and slightly rotate it. Oops. So it looks right again. So that's pretty rough, but let's just look at our lighting. It looks pretty washed out. So we're going to go Studio Low Light. It's a little bit better. And those are distorted as well, but we're going to go with that. Just want to see, maybe add a little bit more light to it. Whoops. Pull that intensity down. Rotate it. So we'll try that. I don't know how this will necessarily look, but brought it all in. Then I'm going to click on Render. I'm going to just do a PNG, not a PSD with this one. I'm just going to do it low and fast and go OK, and we'll see what that looks like. So you can sort of see here, there's my, this is a very low res version of it, so quickly rendered, but you can sort of see a little bit of what we're after. We've got some shadows going on there. So your job today is to create a pattern, a geometric pattern. You can even do it if you decide that you want to use the package that you're going to use for your product. You can use that as well. But the main thing is that we're creating a pattern. We're using a background element behind it, which you wouldn't normally do because you would actually render your package and then use that pattern as background and bringing those into things like banners and stuff like that. But you can sort of see what it does is it starts to give us some brand assets to work with, which is very helpful because now I can sort of, we know we started with Doisy and Dam, boring packaging, really fun chocolate. So at least now I understand that I know where I would be going with this brand story, and then I'd also know that I have now some elements to work with, so circles and squares and pattern, and I could easily continue that onto a second package if I wanted more. And if I simply had that, if that's all I had, I could probably tell a pretty good a pretty good brand story, have a pretty nice website using, you know, some of the patterns and solids and type and things like that. So the main key with this project is it has so many elements to it that you don't want to overthink it, right? So you want to make sure that you get brand assets. If you don't have brand assets for your packaging, and say it's just like a little white package that you've done with type, well, you're going to be chasing your tail, because at some point you need to tell that brand story, and it has to be with original artwork. So we're not using videos we found, we're using videos we've created. We're using animations we've created, not animations we found. So the biggest thing that is going to work for you is to render your package really nicely and to create interesting artwork. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be geometric patterns. If you come up with a really cool funky set of icons or illustration, you could absolutely do that as well. But the main thing is that you're creating something that is going to work across the entire project.